Welcome to Week 7 of the Bill Nees' Coaches Show. I am your host, Chip Hare, and with us, of course, is Coach Bill Nees, and we are getting ready to roll into the second game of our division, and of course, Week 7, we are ready to hit the road, heading to Greenville, which is a tough place to play. We'll talk about that here in a minute, but let's rewind and talk about the tough loss we had Friday night, 28-21, Vandalia over the Indians, and what was a strange game of scoring of sorts. There was 21-14 at the end of the first quarter. Of course, weather played an impact to a lot of schemes and designs and strategies. Second half was really not a lot of action by both ends in terms of offense, but Coach, certainly one that it was a tough one to lose.
Yeah, it was, and you know, in the second half, the only action was that first 15 seconds. Which was, I thought, it was a big surprise for us because that's been a special team that's been outstanding for us. We've had a little trouble with our punt team. We've had a little trouble with our punt return team. But our kickoff team has been solid all year. And we had just a number of breakdowns happen, and they were able to take advantage of it. So, yeah, we came out the first half, and we plotted back and forth about what we wanted to do with the wind, what we wanted to do with the weather. And we decided to unprecedentedly take the ball when when we won the coin toss to make decisions. So then the decision would have to be made for Vandalia Butler then in the second half, which they would have to take the ball. Then in fact we could get the favorable wind. But whether or not we were able to take advantage of it, with a couple things, you always go back and say, well, maybe we should have thrown more, maybe we should have done this more. And I think Vandalia Butler said the same thing. We ended up intercepting them 3 times, and I think they battled the wind also.
Certainly, Mother Nature did impact the game. Particularly, you could tell in that first quarter when they did have the wind to their back and they were moving the ball pretty well. Mm-hmm. We came back and certainly responded very well in that first half. The second half, we talk about breakdowns, and it certainly started on the special teams, which is unusual for us. We look at the game in itself. That game, as you mentioned, they're a mirror of ourselves. Mm-hmm. And we saw that in both the first half and the second half. No surprises, was there?
No, there's no surprises, and I thought both defenses really rose to the occasion in the second half. I think both defenses were getting off the field and kind of giving the eye over, saying, okay, let's see if we can get a first down. And in both cases, it didn't happen. The thing that surprised me the most, I think, with all the different types of punts and all the different types of things that were involved, that there wasn't any, neither side had any bad snaps. And usually in a Vandalia Butler Piqua game, there's going to be a bad snap somewhere down the line. And with weather like that, it really surprised me. But I was happy on our part. I was a little disappointed on their part that we weren't able to get something one way or the other. But you were just kind of looking for that break. I think everybody was trying to look for the break. And it's kind of hard sometimes to, when you're limited with some of the things you can do.
Certainly the was not the end result that the Indians were looking for. And I think for those fans out there that came to the game that no pun intended weathered the tough rain that we had, they go home, or the fans read about the newspaper or hear it on the score on the radio, and they're like disappointed. For you coaches and players, that it's a full week's preparation, and actually it's a full year's preparation because you're watching tape throughout the year. Describe how that feeling is to try to, because I walked in the team room that night and every coach had an iPad right in front of them and you're breaking tape down already.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the first thing you want to do is because things happen so fast, and sometimes, and there's 22 bodies out there, and also you get mixed signals from the players sometimes. They blitzed the last 2 plays of the game. They blitzed, and we got 2 different versions of what happened on the blitz. So you go back and you want to say, okay, now where was the breakdown? It just drives you crazy. You have to be able to go back and say, and I don't know that it makes you feel any better whether or not it was a breakdown that you had covered, or a breakdown you hadn't covered, whatever the case may be, because I think, like if you're a coach and you work all week and something happens and you cover that, you prepared for it, you covered it, okay, you're disappointed because you put so much time in. And you're like, man. Now, on the other hand, if they do something you've never seen before, then you're even more disappointed because you hadn't prepared your players for something of that nature. So either way, it's a big disappointment. And, it's a long week. It's a long week of preparation, and then we're in here at 6 o'clock on Saturday morning, with stuff graded, and as soon as you get it out of your system, you got to get it out of your system, and then you got to move on, because by 8:30 Saturday morning, it's Greenville time.
Well, as Friday night comes, we had all kind of our moments, and certainly as an athletic director, my moments are even not as deep as yours because of the time you invest into it. And you're right, we have to look forward to week 7. We have to move forward, and Greenville, it doesn't bother them one way or the other how we win or lose, because they're waiting to take us on. And we move back to Greenville, which has always been a tough place to play. And it's interesting, JoJo Morris said something to me the other day. She said she remembered when her kids played back in the 90s, and we had some of the best teams that were ranked in the state, and we've gone over there, and it was always a grinded out kind of a game, a tough place to play. And I imagine Friday night with the kind of team they have, it's not going to be any different.
It always has been. It just seems like, whenever we'd go over to Greenville, back when the period you're talking about, it would always be some form of bad weather, and it would always be a neutralizer, an equalizer. And whatever they could do to keep it that way, that'd be the way it's done. And we've had some close games with Greenville, and they're always no matter who's been coaching over there, they always have a solid team. They have a good work ethic over there. Their players have a good work ethic over there, and they're the type of kids that they can motivate and get ready to play. And this year's no different.
Well, certainly it's no secret that the one player on their team that makes them go is their quarterback, Clay Giozzi, who is an outstanding athlete. Talk a little bit about him, and then what we can see from an offense, what kind of offense they run.
Well, they run a different brand of offense on particular occasions. They run an offense with 2 backs, and it features more of a power game, which they did last year against us predominantly. They run a 1-back offense, which spreads people out and gives him the ability to throw the ball, but also make you pay the price if you're not going to keep some people in the box, because he can run with the football very well. And it's not like the old days where you could say, okay, hey, let's make him run the ball. Okay, because he wants to run the ball, and he's very effective at running the ball. So it puts things in a different perspective. And then the third thing they do is they run a no-back offense, and they put him out there put him back there by himself. And then again, it's kind of like you got to pick your poison. You got to spread out, and then you're going to deal with him. You got to deal with him to spread out. So you've got to be able to have a flavor on each one of those. You got to be able to prepare for 2-back, 1-back, and no back all at the same time. And you got to do it with the least amount of personnel changes as possible, because then as soon as you put that guy in, then obviously everybody knows where you're going to be playing your cards.
Greenville is 4-2 with a win over Troy last week, in which they had to come from behind to win that game. But again, they're very talented, well coached football team. They've been the coach, as we talked about the other day. He's been there 3 or 4 years, so his system is starting to play out. Been very disciplined, and you talked about very hard working.
Yeah, they are. And he's got that weight room going over there, and he's got a nice, he had a chance to coach in college for a little bit over at Wittenberg. He also was with Roy Toby over in Fairborn. So he's got a good idea of what he wants to do on offense and what he wants to do on defense. They're not scattered around some teams. You got a little bit of this, a little bit of this. That they know what they want to do, and their players are drilled on it. They know what to look for. If you do this, they're going to do this, and you kind of have to stay one step ahead on both sides of the ball.
Ironically, we go into this game as the same record we were last year, and you and I talked about throughout the year what those 2 games, games 6 and 7, were with Vandalia and Greenville. Yeah. That was a game last year that we felt like not to be disrespectful to Greenville, we really did not help ourselves in this game last year. I'm sure that is another opportunity for us and our players to think about, hey, we need to go down there and have an opportunity to get a great win on the road, because we haven't been on the road for a couple weeks.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things we talked about at the Monday meeting is I said, yeah, we're in the same position numerically as we were last year, but I think we're in a different frame of mind. I really believe that. And one of the lessons we learned this week was Vandalia and Butler, for the last 2 weeks before they played us, they took 2 beatings. And we haven't taken any beatings this year. They took 2 sound beatings, came back Friday night ready to play football. And it's just one of those things that you have to understand, that it's a week by week. It's 10 games. It's not a season. It's 10 individual games, and then you see what happens after that. We talk about being in the race of things. Even with a tough loss on Friday, we're 3-3, different mindset. We're also in a position that we are still in the hunt
for playoffs. We are number 9 in the region. We didn't move. We stayed. Well, I think we dropped 1, but we're still right in there. So we talked about controlling our own destiny. The Indians still have an opportunity to control their own destiny right at this point.
Yeah, we do, and for we keep a decent eye on it. I'm one of the few coaches that doesn't act like they don't keep an eye on it and they wait till the last game of the season. I look at it frequently to see where we're at, because I think that's something that is an expectation and that what we want to do. We've been there before. We want to go back there again. It's something that we strive for. And currently we're in the hunt, but like I told our players again at the Monday meeting, that we're not going to be in the hunt long if we don't start feeding some computer points to that computer. And that means W's. So we've got to make sure we get back in there and get some W's going.
Well, we will look to get that W and feed some points there in Greenville on Friday night, when the Indians will travel to Harbin Field and what has always been a tough game, and we will find a lot about ourselves as a team, and I have great confidence that the Indians will get off that bus, have a great performance, and come back to Piqua with a W.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Just a reminder, the game is at Greenville on Friday night, with the Indians traveling to the Green Wave for a 7 o'clock kickoff. We will be back for the second half of the show with our cornerback senior, Mr. Andrew Lee. Welcome to the second half of the Bill Nees Coaches Show, and with us is Andrew Lee, senior cornerback. And Andrew, welcome to the Bill Nees Coaches Show.
Thank you.
I know you like television a lot. You can tell you're pretty much used to this stuff. You do this stuff all the time?
No, not really.
Andrew, talk a little bit about the season so far. We're going into Greenville, which is week 7. The Indians are 3-3. We've had some good wins. We've had some tough losses. From your perspective as a senior, what's the season been like so far for you?
It's going good for the most part. We just need to work on a few things, and we got it.
Good, good. Well, I can tell you, Andrew, you've made a lot of big plays for the Indians this year. Games that stick out in my mind that I can remember you having some big moments was certainly the Toledo St. John's game, and even in our game last week against Fairborn. What moments this year are some of the highlights that you can tell our people that stand out? What happened to you that helped our team be successful?
The first game, the Toledo St. John's game, when I played wide receiver and caught the 51-yard pass, that was pretty exciting.
It came at a crucial time.
Yeah. And then the Northmont game when I got my first interception of the year, it was pretty fun. And then every time I go back and catch a punt, that's exciting.
Let's talk about the punt. For our fans that have been to a lot of Piqua games, there are a lot of times when punts have come and we're not near it, and sometimes we don't pick the ball up and we let it roll. Toledo St. John's is one that I can remember quite a bit. For those out there that haven't played the game, it's not as simple as catch the ball and you don't want to be near it because we don't want to turn over. Talk a little bit about your mindset when that ball's coming and we're in midair.
It's pretty much you just have to catch it and run, or
make a decision as to whether or not you don't want to touch it, right?
Yep.
Because we don't want to turn the ball over.
No, and we don't want to give up more yards. So pretty much we like to catch the ball and not make the ball go back any further than it's supposed to.
That 51-yard catch against Toledo St. John's, I can remember it really happening at a time that was really important for us to get some momentum. What's the rush like to knowing that you catch a big ball like that and puts our team in a position to win?
It's crazy. Your heart starts racing and you're ready to do it again.
We, as coach and I, talk a lot about commitment, and it's not just a sport that starts in August and ends in November. This is a year-round commitment for you guys. From a player's perspective, what's it like going year-round and preparing for this time that we're talking about just for 10 weeks? Your coach and I have talked about, we put chips on the table. We're hitting the weight room. We're hitting, all the cardiovascular, a lot of footwork, a lot of foot speed to get ready for the week, to get ready for the season. How is that for you?
Well, it starts in the winter. You got to get bigger and stronger for the 10 weeks you play, and if you don't get that, then you just pretty much got to grind it out. And see what works. And
We head to Greenville this week. What stands out to you about what we need to do against Greenville this week from a player's perspective?
Just score touchdowns and not let them score.
Put more points on the board than them, right?
Yeah.
All right. Season's over with. You're going to graduate this year, 2016. What's for Andrew Lee?
Going to college for criminal justice. I haven't decided what college yet, but I've been looking at a few. But
Criminal justice.
Yep.
All right. So maybe someday you'll be a state highway patrolman or police officer. Or you got the right disposition for it. Pretty laid back.
Yeah.
Well, we really appreciate watching you. You're a lot of fun to watch. You got a lot of excitement to you, and we certainly wish you luck this week against Greenville and the rest of the season.
Thank you.
All right. This will conclude week 7 of the Bill Nees Coaches Show. Fans, don't forget the Indians are on the road, as the Indians will travel to Greenville on Friday night at Hardman Field with a 7 o'clock kickoff. For Andrew Lee, I am Chip Hare, and we will see you next week for the Bill Nees Coaches Show.